Okay, welcome to another episode of the Be Clear podcast, helping people gain clarity in all aspects of their lives. This one specifically catered to men. Of course, women are also welcome to listen. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there. So, I'm here with our guest, Mr. Matt.
Hello, hello.
AKA Matt Daddy.
Yes, that's me.
Formerly known as.
Yeah. Formerly known as. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, let's start with who are you and what is your story?
My name is Matt. I'm 37 years old. I grew up on Vancouver Island. Left home at a very young age and came to the big city when I was 16. That's here in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver area. Had a bit of a rough go as a kid, and it took me a long time to kind of find my path in life, which I'm still discovering, but I'm definitely fully on it now. I had, I guess, one of the more interesting years of my life was in my 20s. I spent 5 years in the adult industry as a performer, talent scout, videographer, editor, basically all aspects. Been interviewed on TV, magazines, tried to make a career out of that.
Yeah.
Which was fun at the time, and I was all for it. This will tie into what we're gonna talk about today. I think that the subject matter we haven't given it away yet, but do you want to talk about that, or do you want to just
exactly, yeah. So you used to be like in the porn industry, doing filming, editing, videoing, being started in it, doing interviews, all sorts of things, and that's kind of led you to this journey now, which has led you to realize that industry has a lot of negative effects on men and women at the same time. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you started a NoFap community in Vancouver that I'm actually a part of, and this is a community where guys hold each other accountable to. Every day they post what day they're on to make sure that they stay on track and don't give into the urge of watching porn and busting a nut. Yeah. So why do you feel it's important for guys to start on this NoFap, committing to not fapping to porn, not masturbating to porn?
Oh man, I mean, there's huge. There's the individual impact of it, and then there's the societal impact. So it's a very big question and a broad question. The individual aspect, it can basically affect all aspects of your life. I'm just gonna turn the dryer off here.
Yeah, sounds good.
One of the biggest and scariest issues that guys face with chronic fapping, or PMO as we call it, porn masturbation orgasm, is porn-induced ED, which is absolutely huge.
What's ED?
Erectile dysfunction.
Right. So, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Okay.
Yeah, it's something that's the studies that are just coming out that show that it is a thing. Even when I was in the porn industry, I was masturbating to porn on a pretty frequent basis. We didn't have I didn't have high-speed internet porn yet, which is the real killer, right?
Yeah.
But ever since I was like 13 and I discovered my friends' parents' VHS tapes and stuff, I was watching videos, stealing girly mags from the local convenience store and beating off with my buddies. But back then it wasn't as widely available. You couldn't sit there with a mouse in your hand and click on image after image, open multiple tabs, have all these videos streaming at you. This overload of stimulation. You couldn't just sit there and boost your dopamine with a click, because you would run out of you turn all the pages in the magazine and that would be it. It's like, okay, it's time to come. You wouldn't sit there and edge to it for hours. Edging is the process of sitting there and putting off your orgasm for long periods to keep that dopamine stimulation in your brain. Those feel-good chemicals going. So back then, porn wasn't as as effective at hijacking our brains as it is now.
Right.
But even back then at a young age, I saw porn and I was hooked, I guess you could say.
Right.
And then that turned into a career, right? As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh wow, back in the 70s, which is the stuff I was watching.
Yeah.
I'm not that old, but my parents were, right? So they had the 70s stuff with the hairy muff and all that. And,
Yeah.
I'd be watching this stuff and they had like full-fledged plot lines and stuff.
Yeah.
It was like a feature-length movie. You'd have an hour and a half, 2 hours, and these people were actors, and I thought, oh wow, like I think being an actor would be cool. Imagine being an actor who gets to have sex with his beautiful co-stars. That sounds like a dream job.
Yeah.
So, I pursued it relentlessly. And when I finally did get in, I was in my early 20s, 23. But I was still jerking off to porn. And I did find the first couple scenes, I didn't use Viagra or anything. But I did find that, the erections would be up or down.
Yeah.
Partly the conditions, But as my career wore on, I became more and more reliant. Everybody in the industry was taking Viagra.
Right.
And I became more reliant on it. All the guys were watching porn too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us were guys that like porn. That's why we're doing it. It's something we love, right?
Yeah.
So, and I saw as the years wore on and porn became more and more high speed, up until I got out of the industry in like 2008. The guys were going to more extreme measures to keep themselves hard on the set. So you would have guys using this shit called Caverject.
Okay.
This is some real porn insider information. A lot of people don't know this shit, but Caverject is a injectable drug for people, normally used for developed for people who are like in a wheelchair, kind of paralyzed from the waist down. And maybe have no feeling down there, just so that they could get an erection to stimulate their partner. It expands the blood vessels with an injectable that goes right into your penis. And I used it once and vowed never again. It was a very painful erection and a long erection, which can be dangerous.
Yeah.
But there was guys that were using it for every shoot.
Oh, wow.
And I remember one guy in particular, he had to stop shooting for a while because he developed an abscess in his dick. And this is a guy who was at the time in his early 20s. But who grew, by this point, they're kind of growing up with internet porn.
Yeah.
So even back then, I could see like, okay, guys are having difficulties with this, young guys, which I found interesting, and but I didn't really correlate it yet with watching porn.
Yeah.
I just thought like, oh, this is interesting. Like maybe everybody just has this issue. But now, I mean. Well, I currently I'm in the pickup community as well.
Yeah.
So I don't fap to porn anymore, but I pick up real life girls, which is kind of another addiction in itself. But I do analyze that on occasion to see where I'm at with it, and is this something that needs to be stopped as well? But I do sleep with a fair amount of younger girls, and I hear on a consistent basis like, wow, like. Because now I don't fap, all these kind of symptoms are gone. Yeah. But like, wow, like, oh, you're so hard, you're this and that. Like, well, your
biggest loads.
Come so much, like the volcano loads, and they're just amazed because the young guys that they're having sex with just, they can't get it up, or some of them just have no interest in sex. They're not going out and having sex with girls. They're sitting at home playing video games and watching porn. So porn-induced ED is a major one, and it has to do with, if you go to yourbrainonporn.com is a great resource. There's a lot of them out there, but there's some videos on there specifically about porn-induced ED, why it happens, and studies are showing now that yes, it is a thing, and it is caused by porn, and this is why. And you're basically, for one, and this is something that's kind of been. What would you call it? A bit of common knowledge is like, well, if you're getting a death grip when you're jerking off, you're sitting there squeezing your dick. Like, well, a girl isn't going to feel like that. Yeah. Maybe if she's a virgin, but you can't spend your life chasing virgins. I mean, you could, but
still doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, like so you're desensitizing yourself physically that way, and you're also sensitizing. You're desensitizing in one way, you're sensitizing in another way you're sensitizing these nerve pathways in your brain to get stimulated when they view multiple tabs of women getting gangbanged, or
Yeah.
you know, trannies
An
fucking midgets,
overstimulation, yeah.
or you know, all these unrealistic sexual situations with multiple partners that are not going to happen when you're in bed with the girl you picked up from the bar, or with your girlfriend at home.
Yeah.
You know, in real life situations. So your brain, the pathways aren't gonna, you know, your neurons aren't gonna fire up when you see a real life girl in front of you. You're gonna be like, oh, like, where's the 10 guys coming on your
Yeah.
face? Like,
Where's the good part?
where does the goat come in, or whatever, right? Like, like, can we fast forward? Where's the skip
Yeah,
button? Is
exactly.
the nipple, poke, nope. And the girl's gonna be like, what the fuck, dude? So, yeah.
Interesting.
Huge one is the PIED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. That's a
Right.
major. That's the reason a lot of guys come to NoFap in the first place. But it's just one of many broader individual symptoms that can include like brain fog,
Yeah.
anxiety,
Uh-huh.
depression,
Yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
all science to back this stuff up. You know, like, what do you expect if say you do ecstasy every day and you're boosting your serotonin and dopamine levels
Yeah.
on a daily basis? You do that for a month and then you stop cold turkey. You're gonna fucking be curled up in a ball under blankets, crying like a baby,
Yeah.
hating your life, right?
Yeah.
So you can do that with porn. You can sit there for a couple hours every day, like I did, and stew in those dopamines and edge, and you know, of course you're gonna come out depressed. Your dopamine's gonna be completely depleted. Unless you're sitting in front of the screen, and that's the only time you feel good.
Yeah.
The little things in life are going to be less meaningful because you're used to these huge jolts in surges in dopamine, not the little bumps that most people get from, like, you know, eating a chocolate bar as a
Right.
treat, or seeing a beautiful sunset,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
holding hands with a beautiful woman.
Yeah, something
but
as
the
simple
great
as
thing
that,
is that all those things come back. They can come back if you stop and you reboot, as we call it, and get off the porn, get off the masturbation, and get out there and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Instead.
Totally, man. I just want to add to that porn, like any kind of drug, is sort of an instant gratification, which, you know, if for example, sex is the desire, porn is the instant gratification to that desire. And instead of investing in the long term, a lot of guys, because it's so easy, tend to just be like, oh, well, I haven't gotten laid in so long, so I might as well, you know, get a little action. And so they delay their acting on actually meeting girls in the real world, and they just go towards the screen and just fap to, you know, acting. Yeah. Cool. So how has NoFap changed your life so far? I mean, you've mentioned a couple things, but let's keep going on that note.
My voice is lower. That's what a lot of guys talk about.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like I don't talk like this anymore. You know, like if I go back and like watch, you know, say, well, my old porn videos, for example, and I look at the dialogue and I'm like, wow, I sound like a nervous little boy. You know? And so that's one big difference.
Yeah.
My energy levels are through the roof. You know, I used to be very lethargic and procrastinating. I mean, I've always been a little bit of a motivated guy, so it wasn't to the point where I was like eating Cheetos in front of the computer getting fat. Like, so, but some guys are, and that's really sad. You know what I mean? But I was definitely on a dark path. So yeah, now I'm on a light path. My career, I was able to, you know, get through school with a lot of focus. My mental clarity and acuity and sharpness, I feel like is through the roof. I'm calmer, and well, I mean, I've put on more muscle mass. My sex drive's higher. we call it like superpowers. You
Yeah.
end up with this animal magnetism towards women, because if you think about it, maybe 99% of guys, I don't know what the stats are, but
A
like,
lot of them.
18 to 36, good portion of men are going to be jerking it to porn here and there, or at the very least masturbating in general. I mean, I go the extreme route where I don't masturbate and I don't look at porn. I purely, get my rocks off
Yeah.
through sex with a real live woman.
Yeah.
And I think there's very few guys that are doing that on a consistent basis. And we're animals, right? We're putting out pheromones and subtle sub-communications that women are, they're intuitive creatures and they pick up on this stuff. So
Absolutely.
you get to the point where you just look at a girl and, it's on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's something that it wouldn't happen that way back in my like PMO days.
Yeah.
You would have to do a lot more like gaming and getting to know the girl and stuff. Whereas now the girls view you instantly as a sexual being, because you're
Yeah.
putting that out there
Yeah.
with your energies and your vibe, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes you thirstier to go out there and actually meet women, right? Yeah, and that's one of the benefits.
But in a good way, in a non-needy
absolutely.
way. I find like, even though yes, of course, like now that I'm not masturbating, I want to have sex. But the thing is, I also have all this added confidence and stuff that comes with the NoFap.
Yeah.
So it's not like going out like chasing and stuff like this, right? It's more like you're more likely to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and actually, be honest with your own desires and realize when you start feeling something for a girl, whether even it's the slightest erection or slightest feeling of butterflies, you can honor that instead of before. If, for example, I noticed when I was doing a lot of fapping, I would make up a lot more excuses back in the day, and just be like, oh, well, I mean, she's probably a bitch, or, she might have a boyfriend, or the timing is just not right, or all these different excuses. Whereas now I think, okay, well, here's a feeling, and it's because I see this girl and she's beautiful to me, so I should go at least introduce myself and find out what she's about.
Yeah.
And it starts there, right?
For sure, that's a great way to put it. That you can honor it that way, because when you have a sex life that's foundation is masturbating to porn, there's some shame, I think, around sex, and that drops off, and you can honor your own desires and not be ashamed for your desires as a man, because they're now kind of cleaner and more pure, because you don't equate sex with being hunched over a computer screen, masturbating to really nasty stuff for the most part, right? And that's another thing about the addiction is a lot of guys escalate to genres and acts that become more and more extreme as you need more and more to get off,
right?
Because you're one of the things that spikes our dopamine is not just like sexual stimulation or seeing like a new girl or a new, it's like shock, novelty, anxiety, all these like kind of like novelty is not negative, but it's just the way that our brains are programmed. We're programmed to discover, right? So you want to keep seeing new things, and it turns into, and then if it's something that shocks you and makes you anxious, spikes your dopamine, well, your nerve cells are going to wire to that. Your brain cells are going to wire to that, and
leads to a lot of confusion.
Yeah, for sure. And another great thing about that though is like, say, a lot of guys, well, they'll escalate to like ladyboy porn is a common one, or I don't know, like bestiality or something, right? Like, or like really rough sex, you know what I mean?
And that's not good for society.
No, it's not. And the thing is that a lot of those things when you reboot and you quit watching the porn and you turn it off and you stop jerking off to it and you start retraining your brain, a lot of guys find that their sexual desires go back to something that's what would be considered pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with people who are into like S&M and etc. If you're really into that, like great, good for you. Or if you're into lady boys, like that's great, you know. But be sure that it's you that's into it, and it's not porn that's conditioning you to do something that maybe you're going to look back on later and be like, oh wow, like okay, now I'm clean from porn. I did some pretty awful things in real life because of porn's influence, and you know, are you going to be able to live with yourself after that? I mean, of course you will, but is it going to be something you're going to regret, right?
It's really just about how deep in the trenches do you go until you realize that it's too deep. It's
like being an alcoholic and finding your bottom, right? Maybe you wake up, you've been watching something where, you know, a girl's getting like smacked around and you can't tell if it's real or not, and you're like, I mean, I've had that situation. I used to like to watch the rough stuff. And part of that stayed with me, actually. So I don't know if that's my natural sexuality or if it was conditioned by porn, and it very well could have been conditioned by porn. You know, but I had moments where I'd be watching something and be like, oh shit, like, is this actually real? Like, 'cause of course I don't want to see somebody actually getting hurt or like doing something without their consent. And sometimes you can tell, like, okay, it's put on for the cameras, but sometimes you can't. And that's one of the things that really shocked me out of
so that was one of the moments where you realized that, whoa, okay, this is dangerous stuff here.
That would be like one of my personal bottoms.
I guess for me it's really just the feeling post masturbation where you just feel like the scum of the earth. That is a no good feeling, and I was just like, I can't do that anymore. I've had enough of that. It's totally not worth the dopamine surge that you get before it, because what you feel after it carries over to your career, your family, the women in your life, everything. Right? So, what are some of the biggest challenges in this NoFap journey? Because there are a lot of challenges, like any addiction, right? What are those challenges and how do you deal with them?
Well, relapse would be first and foremost, right? I mean, it's very easy to go back to it. We're all on our computers and our cell phones. We're connected with technology now, and it's an unavoidable part of life. So how do you? And those are your triggers, right? You've actually bonded. It's interesting. You see, if you go to see your brain on porn site. But you've actually bonded with your computer, especially if you've been doing it from a young age. As the next generation is, you're actually falling in love with your hardware, because when you're jerking off in front of your computer, you're releasing the dopamine, the norepinephrine, and like the feel-good chemicals, but you're also releasing oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. Because your brain, yes, our modern brains know that we're looking at a screen and it's not real, but a big portion of our brain is still primitive. It hasn't evolved yet. It's just kind of grown, but the primitive roots, so to speak, have stayed. And they're telling us, oh, each woman that we're looking at is a viable mating partner, and we're putting out those hormones that attach us as human beings. So that's that's scary enough for a guy my age who didn't originally wire to high-speed internet porn in my sexual taste. But imagine kids nowadays, they're getting into it between like 11 and 13. For boys is the average age. There's some study recently, it's like, don't quote me on the numbers, Google it for yourself. Porn study on 12-year-old boys, but they found something like 36% in like a classroom poll identified as addicted to porn or having some elements of addiction to porn. So I mean, imagine that, and these kids haven't had sex yet, so they're wiring their whole sexual identities to a computer screen. So how do you prevent yourself from just sitting back down in front of the computer and repeating the process over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, I spent a long time doing that, and I used to do things like I had a little Mac Mini,
Right.
and it's like just a little like 6x6
Yeah.
square thing, right? And so I'd unplug everything, start hooking up to the monitor and the mouse and the keyboard. Back then, it wasn't all wireless, or mine wasn't. So I'd unplug everything, which was a chore, and I'd go put it in like the closet in another room,
Yeah.
and be like, okay, I'm gonna leave this for like 5 days. And like, I don't like the way porn's making me feel. Like I knew back then it was a bad thing for me. But I would pull it out. I'd reconnect everything the next day. I'd go through all this hassle. I'd be late for work. It would fuck up. I'd cancel a date or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty bad when you're putting real life porn ahead of real life girls. You know what I mean? I'd cancel dates because I'd be like, shit, this girl's gonna want to have sex. And I just jerked off like 3 times in a row, and I have nothing left. I'm shooting blanks. You know what I mean? And I have to cancel with this real life girl.
Man,
so that's when you know you have a problem.
That's a drastic measure, yeah.
Yeah, but of course that didn't work. I just keep pulling it out, and now we all have our phones. So
which makes it even harder to refrain. Yeah.
So what do? Well, there's you gotta basically do like the net nanny type shit, and you gotta block yourself out from the sites. So what I use on my desktop is a program called K9. I think it's called K9 Security. If you Google it, it's a free software. There might be a paid version, but the free one's good enough. Be very careful when you set up the settings, because you can find yourself locked out of YouTube and stuff in general if you don't go over everything. Check the things you don't want blocked. Yeah. But it's great software. What you want to do is you'll set a password. Just type it in on your screen as you make it up, random letters and numbers. Phone somebody you trust and give them the password, and then delete it, right? And forget it. And you'll be locked out of sites. If you still find yourself, like I used it, and I found myself able to browse like Tumblr. Yeah. So I go on Tumblr and I look at like the porn blogs on there, right?
Nasty, yeah.
Yeah. I actually know a girl who's a porn addict who runs a Tumblr blog of porn. So yeah, it's a treasure trove. So don't go there. But when you set up K9, block stuff like that. If you found ways around it, you found sites that aren't blocked, add it to the blocked list. Mm-hmm. You can have your personal block list. Be honest with yourself. No cheating. Yeah. So that's the way to go for like desktop, laptop. For your phone, there's I haven't found a way to block completely. There may be some paid programs out there and stuff. Yeah. There may be some ones that I've tried that block things, but they block too much. Like, okay, now I can't, maybe now you can't go on your Facebook or something, right? Yeah. But you can use a program that will send emails of your browsing activities to an accountability partner. A lot of guys in NoFap use an accountability partner. Or an accountability group like we have here in Vancouver. But you basically keep each other honest. You can do daily check-ins over the phone or online or whatever, say how you're doing, your successes, your failures, and you can also exchange your browsing histories with this program called Ever Accountable. It's available in the App Store. It's a paid program. It's quite cheap. I do a yearly subscription rate, which is even cheaper, but I think last I checked, by the month it was $4 or $5, so it's very reasonable, and it will flag. It flags things that you're watching a rap video with explicit lyrics. It's going to get flagged. So your accountability partner has to be willing to wade through a bit of stuff to check on you, but it is doable. Personally, I use my mom. Yeah. So I keep myself really accountable. I use my mom as a partner and also my NoFap accountability partner. Yeah. So I got 2 people, but you can add several. Yeah. So that's how I avoid that major trigger. But I mean, there's a ton of triggers. I mean, just being bored, having time on your hands. Stress. Yeah, that's a huge one. Huge. Anytime or depression or any negative emotion, because porn is a way to escape. Yeah. You're in a different reality. You're flooding your brain with chemicals. Yeah. So you want to be aware of your triggers, and especially at first, maybe the first month, You want to avoid putting yourself in those triggering situations, or if they do come up, have an action plan to deal with it. Like a lot of guys are like, okay, if I feel the urge to fap, I'm going to make myself do 30 push-ups, or I'm going to run around the block one time. Going out and getting some fresh air, jumping in a cold shower, kind of shocking yourself out of the urge is one way. Another way, if you're into meditation and mindfulness, which I think myself and probably Sam as well, you're into that, right?
Yeah.
We would highly recommend that as well to just help yourself, not judge yourself, and be mindful of what's going on in your mind. Kind of be the watcher of your mind. So if you have an urge, you can say, okay, my brain is having an urge right now. And one of the techniques is called urge surfing. So you just kind of watch the urge and allow it to be there. Say, okay, urge, I see you there. What are you gonna do? I'm just curious. And you just kind of watch what happens. And the fact, in the moment of noticing it, usually it will crest and then start to disappear. The urge will get stronger. You'll feel like you want to act on it, but if you just sit and watch it, remain present with it, it does tend to fade, just because you're aware of it. A lot of times we go onto autopilot. It's like a Pavlovian response. You ring the bell, the dog comes and gets its food, right? And it eats it, and then eventually you take the food away, but you keep the bell. The dog still comes and thinks the food is there and starts salivating, and it'll just keep doing that every time you ring the bell, even though the food's not there. So your brain, when there's a trigger, it those neurons fire up. I'm not a brain scientist, by the way, so if I'm using the wrong terminology, don't hate.
Something happens in
your brain on porn though is done by an official scientist, so you can get your scientific info there on what exactly is going on in your brain in these moments.
I've noticed that triggers for me are as simple as boredom is one. Bored being at home is one. Number two, stress. Feeling down about yourself is very dangerous, because that will ultimately, you'll want to escape into something, whether it's any other addiction or whether it's porn and masturbating. But what I've started doing is just distancing myself and realizing that, okay, anytime I would relapse, I would realize that, okay, what led me to relapse? And just taking that one step to realize that, okay, it was me browsing on my phone in my bed before that happened. So I would cut that out. I would make sure that there's no phone before bed. And those are the little routines, little rules you have to set for yourself if you really want to avoid and really want to be on this no-fap path, is realizing your triggers. The other thing I've realized, which I think someone in the group posted the other day, is anytime they feel the urge, they just sit, meditate on the fact that, okay, the consequences of fapping will be much greater than the benefits, and you just go through the consequences of how it might affect your day. And that's super, super powerful, because then you realize that, oh yeah, okay, well, if I fap, I'm going to have low energy, it's going to affect my work, it's going to affect how I deal with women, I might not be motivated to go out tomorrow, all these different things. And I'm sure everyone's different, but these are just few of the strategies, and we really encourage that you figure out what your triggers are, so that you can be aware of them, and then make sure that those triggers don't happen. Like the Pavlovian, what was it called?
Pavlovian response.
Response. Like when you ring the bell for the dog to come get food, and then you take the food away, and the dog still comes when you ring the bell. So similar effect. Okay, cool.
And you said, like, when you're in a kind of down emotional state, that's a trigger. So do you find like you've had to find ways to avoid being in those down emotional states, or do you just when those states arise, you have other ways, other outlets of dealing with negative emotions?
I think for me, when that happens, I never try to like push those emotions away. I try to go into them more. to really figure out why it is. Because though that for me it's a very important, like those emotions are actually beneficial because you can use that to learn something and to set your standard higher. Because when you realize, okay, what's making me sad or what's making me depressed, then you realize that it's because of not having this, or it's because of the commitment to myself that I didn't do. So it kind of strengthens the bond with myself. So I really just go into the emotion, and I try to not be in an environment where I can, give into those urges that might surge dopamine. So what I might do is go for a walk and just be with my feelings for an hour or two until I come to a resolution.
Right.
And that seems to be working for me.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you don't want to push those emotions away. They're going to continue to arise, but I think with myself anyways, without the outlet of fapping, I've had to find positive outlets.
Yeah.
For frustrations or ways to just keep myself living an overall happy and positive life. NoFap was a real catalyst for change. Absolutely. In all aspects of life. Joining a sports team and keeping my diet clean. And just doing all these positive things that tend to fall by the wayside when you're in the throes of any addiction. Any kind of downward spiraling addiction, your life tends to follow that downward spiral pattern.
Or upward spiral.
Once you break out of it, once you break out of it, it's a great opportunity to create some new positive habits to replace the old bad ones. And it's a natural process. Like, you just find like, oh wow, all of a sudden I'm interested in these things that I used to be interested in. Like, wow, like I want to like read a book, or I want to go to the beach today. Things that for me anyways, I was probably spending a couple hours a day on porn. Mm-hmm. That might be a pretty extreme case, but there's gonna be guys out there that are like, wow, I pull all night 12-hour benders, 2 hours is nothing for me. But then there's gonna be guys who are just like, I look at porn once a day and I don't view it as a big deal. But I would encourage you to just look at, is it affecting me in any other aspects of my life?
I think one good way to just, even if you're a little bit skeptical, if you're like, well, I mean, porn's good, it does no harm, I release, the goo. At the end of the day, if you just try 30 days, see what kind of effects it has on you. Once you hit 30 days, I guarantee you that it will feel good. You'll have a stronger connection to yourself. You'll have a bigger commitment to your highest desires, and that is not porn. Highest desires does not equal porn. I find that, like you said, the spiral, the spiral of going up or going down. It's really just about momentum, and the momentum you choose to feed is the wolf you choose to feed is the one that'll grow and get bigger. So which wolf do you choose to feed is really the question you have to ask yourself. Are you going to feed your bad habits, or are you going to perhaps decide that you no longer want to have that, and you're going to start today, not tomorrow. You're going to start today, day one. Create accountability partners, find a way, figure out those triggers, write them down, and move forward. Create that good momentum.
Yeah, and doing a month-long challenge, I think, is a great way to discover NoFap and get into it. I don't know when this is being released, but we were recording it at the end of October, and the traditional NoFap month was NoFap November, right, which is coming up. This may not be released in time, but you can pick any month. Do NoFap December, do NoFap January, NoFap February, whatever. You don't have to make it like all official. If you don't know anybody that's into this and you want to do it with a friend, actually the first time I did NoFap was just with a buddy. He was on like the 4chan boards, and they had the NoFap November, like you fap you lose thing.
Yeah.
And we were doing it just for fun, like just for fun, just fucking around with a bro. Like, let's see how long we can do it. We weren't negative about porn. We didn't, it was back in the day, like 2010 or something, right?
Yeah.
And we did it just for fun. But after we both made it, I think he made it 2 weeks, I made it 3 weeks. And by week 3, we're like, like having like threesomes and shit. Like just like, we had the superpowers by then. So, but you may need more time depending on it's a bit odd, but the younger guys actually have a harder time bouncing back usually than the older guys do, for kind of reasons we talked about earlier, where it was the older guys may have wired with a real life partner, or at least had some real life partners before high-speed internet porn. The guys who are wired to high-speed internet porn may need a longer reboot because they're so bonded with their computers. They're like, they're pair bonded, right? It's like breaking up with a girlfriend. Well, if you're with your girlfriend for 3 years, you may need a bit of a flat. You may have a bit of a flat line, as we call it, where you have no sexual desire for anybody or anything for months after, and you're in a kind of depressed fog. Well, unfortunately, if you've wired to high-speed internet porn from a young age, you may have to give yourself more time. But I would encourage you to try it and be patient with yourself. And if you want to join our NoFap group on WhatsApp, I'm not going to put my phone number out here, but I will put my email address, or you can comment on the podcast, and we'll set you up and get you in the group if you have a serious desire to stop fapping, at least stop fapping to porn. There's some guys in there who don't fap in general. There's going to be guys in there that just don't want to fap to porn. There's going to be guys in there that are like fucking monks that don't want to have sex with anybody. And
that's called what? It's a full reboot?
That's a full reboot, and it's sometimes it's necessary, So you might find, okay, I'm doing NoFap. Maybe you had ED, porn-induced ED issues. You're doing NoFap. You go to have sex with a girl. We have a guy in our group right now that was just posting about this. It's all anonymous, by the way, so no names. But he's a very young guy. He's 20 years old. He's doing NoFap for 20 days. Tried to have sex with a girl. Boom, can't get it up. So he's got to give himself more time. That's all it is. But if you want to be in a supportive environment, you just get at us and we'll hook you up.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about flatlining. What is flatlining?
Basically, you lose your sexual desire for a period, and it's common. It can strike at any time. Do you know like the kind of science behind it?
No.
I was watching a video about it the other day, but it's a little bit complicated. But there is reasons behind it. So again, yourbrainonporn.com. They'll tell you the reasons behind why it happens, and it's great to know why something's happening. You can look at it more objectively. You don't feel so alone. You feel more normal, right? Like, okay, I'm not the only one who's going through this, and there's a reason for it. And it's not like I'm a bad person, or I have no sex drive. You don't have to like internalize those negative beliefs because it's just not true. But you will. Most guys experience at least one period of flatline in the NoFap journey. Where you don't want to fap, but you're not interested in girls either, but that's okay. It's normal.
And it goes away after a couple weeks maybe. Depends. Everyone's different. It really depends on how deep those roots go and how long you've been addicted to porn. I didn't want to use the word addicted, but it is an addiction. So, admittingly.
Yeah,
So-
it's an addiction that actually works on the same reward circuit in the same way that cocaine, meth, and opiates work
Yeah.
in your brain, like the exact same changes in
Yeah.
the neural pathways.
And that's on your brain
and
on
it
board.
does, yeah, and it actually does. You know, like your parents used to say, like eating candy rots your brain, or don't do drugs, they rot your brain. All these addictive substances they found, they actually do rot your brain. They
Yeah.
eat away at your
Yeah.
gray matter in the reward circuit. And, you know, luckily with discoveries on neuroplasticity and whatnot, brains can be rewired. You know, gray matter will replenish. But as you're in the throes of addiction, think about it. You're sitting there fapping in front of your computer. It's eating away at your brain. Not to scare you or anything, but you know, it's the studies are showing. So it is an addiction for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's an especially powerful addiction too, because our brains are naturally wired to seek sex. So things like sex addiction or food addiction or porn addiction, they're all really powerful, and in some ways I would say harder to break than chemical addictions, because the chemical addictions aren't natural, and even the other non-chemical addictions, like say a food addiction, well, there's going to be noticeable effects, right?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a lot of kind of public humiliation surrounding it. You know, if you're a crackhead, you're going to be walking around all skinny, you know, making weird jerky movements in the street. If you're on heroin, you're going to be falling asleep all the time, or on opiates. Now it's opiates in general, I guess. You know, if you're on acid, you're going to be a psychopathic, like schizophrenic weirdo, talking to yourself in the streets. You know, meth, you're going to have sores all over your face. Food, you're going to be obese. You know, with porn, it's like, well, just something's a little off about that guy. You know, that guy's kind of weird. You feel it when you're around people.
Yeah, it's
a nervous energy.
There it is. It's a very nervous energy, and I've been there, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to this. It's almost like a feeling of, you might see a girl that might have been in a porn video or looks like a chick you've seen in a porn video but is incredibly hot, and you would probably like to go talk to her, but you find yourself sweating and shaking at the knees. And you know, that it's a little bit different than like the butterflies you might get once you're off of NoFap and you've actually done it a few times. You've gone up to a girl a few times and found out that, hey, they don't all bite. And they're not all mean. So, right? It's kind of like it's fear. It's very fear-based, and that fear, every time you watch porn, every time you fap, that fear just gets a little bit stronger and stronger, to the point where it's noticeable in public. It's very noticeable in public. Yeah. So be aware of that. If you notice yourself, if you are, you know, have been fapping and you notice yourself in public, you see a hot girl, and all these nervousness starts to come up, just be aware of it. That is the first step, becoming aware of that, and then realizing that, okay, well, cool, it's there. How can I change that? What can I do about it? Yeah, cool. Let's talk about some of the actual, tangible, measurable results that you have seen. Now, I know that you've done some testosterone tests compared to your past.
Yeah.
And how did those turn out?
Oh man, well, I actually posted these in the NoFap group back in, I guess it was, I don't remember the exact dates, but I think like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. It was a good chunk of years ago. My testosterone in my, I guess then I would have been in my early 30s. You know, I'm 37 now. My testosterone was at the level of you know, a 67-year-old man in
age
ill
30.
health.
Yeah.
At age 30. It was in the lower, it was actually in the out of normal range at one point, like below normal, or it would hover right around the baseline for normal. But the normal is averaged out over all men over 18 years old. That's how they run their tests, which is, in my opinion, mean, I'm not a doctor, but I think it's ridiculous, and a lot of guys do as well, like guys who are seriously into maintaining their testosterone, like bodybuilders, guys who use steroids, etc. I've never used steroids. I'm not a bodybuilder by any means, so there's no reason for my testosterone to be that low. The doctors couldn't figure it out. And they try to tell me, well, you know, yeah, you're low, but it's kind of low normal. But if you look at charts that are averaged out by age, mine were in the low range of an old man. Wow. So the low range of like a 67-year-old man, I was in the low range for those guys, right?
Yeah.
And I was having all these symptoms, you know, brain fog, no interest in sex besides porn, you know, poor memory, difficulty concentrating, depression, crying fits, you know, like
the whole
loss of muscle mass. I had all sorts of other unexplained health symptoms that went away with NoFap, low back pain, poor posture. I was hunched over my computer all the time. I had this weird way of slouching down in my seat when I fapped.
What's that pose called? Is there's a name for that position.
Oh, is there?
When you're hunching over the computer.
Yeah. I want to know it.
It's,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's just it's a funny position to be in.
Yeah.
Hunching over the computer.
Yeah, I guess it's probably a standard thing.
You know, sticking out.
Yeah,
right in front of the screen. Yeah,
that was me for sure. So yeah, it was a whole bad for your neck and back. But that went away. You know, I'm not hunched over my computer anymore. I had BPH, which I just posted about in the group the other day. Benign prostate hyperplasia, which is an unknown cause for like an enlarged prostate. You know, they just call it BPH. So I had that. You know, dribbling urine at night. All sorts of stuff.
Wow.
You know, rashes on my penis, probably from like, you know, having pretty gross,
Scabs.
but having like cum drying on your dick, like the acid. I can't imagine that's very good for you. Or pre-cum all the time. It's like, but thankfully all that stuff went away. And my testosterone, now there isn't any correlation as far as I know with studies so far on testosterone and masturbation, although somebody posted in the group recently a graph that shows peaks and troughs in testosterone pre and post masturbation with over a period of 1 week between masturbation. And so there is some correlation with orgasm and testosterone, but I haven't seen any tests that show a correlation between frequent and prolonged masturbation and orgasms to porn and a link to peaks and troughs in testosterone. But anyways, I have my testosterone tested once a year, and my most recent results and the results over the past 2 years, it's fucking just shot up through the roof since I seriously started NoFap. Like I had a 220 something day streak, and then now I'm on day 42, I believe, today. So, you know, basically fapped like twice in the past year, right? And now my testosterone is 29 or something. It's right at the peak. Whereas if it was going to be like 1 point higher, it would be 1 or 2 points higher. It would be above normal, which is not good either. You don't want to be a guy who's going around like roid raging for no reason. That's what happens when you have too much testosterone. But I'm in the peak for a guy who's in like, you know, 18 to 25 range. I'm in the upper level for those guys at 37, and I attribute it to NoFap. And I do expect, as with a lot of the other things that guys in the community have talked about over the past years, that studies will come out to back up this stuff, just like they are coming out to back up porn-induced ED, which doctors, you know, thought it was a myth and not true, and just kind of bro science up until, you know, a year ago or whatever. So
so that's very interesting. I think this is might be a fact. It might just be something that's kind of thrown out there, but they say that men reach their peak of their sexuality when they are 18 to 21, in that range. So so these are the effects that it can have for you, and it is truly incredible. just the momentum you start gaining in your life from this journey. Yeah, it's truly, truly good.
Oh, and I do want to say too with the testosterone thing, if you look up those numbers, these are in Canadian lab measures. They're different from the States. So in the States, it's in hundreds of nanograms per milliliter or something like that, right? Like it's a different unit. So yeah, I had to go online and use conversion calculators and stuff to figure it out, because here in the labs they give you a score in the is basically like 0 to 30 range or something like that.
So where can they find this again?
Testosterone charts.
Yeah.
Just Google testosterone charts by age, and the average testosterone chart you can find on your lab report if you're here in BC. They'll give you a range, and then if it's out of range, it'll say out of normal range. But they do post the low and the high on your lab results when you get those here in BC.
Yeah, and if someone, for example, wants to like take this serious, they decide that they actually want to compare the results from today when they started NoFap and from day 30 days from now.
Yeah.
Just go to a family doctor or...
Yeah, I go to my family doctor, but you'll have to find a sympathetic doctor. What you can do is print out some stuff from yourbrainonporn.com. I've done this, not for this issue, but I had like a rare bone condition in my hips, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. I had to do my own research. It was like a WCB thing, and it turned out I had like this FAI thing, which at the time was not very heard of. So I had to bring in my own evidence and advocate for myself.
Yeah.
And I had to shop around. I had to go to different doctors because they weren't listening to me. WCB saying, "Oh, you just strained a muscle." I ended up needing 3 surgeries. So if I didn't advocate for myself, I'd be screwed. It's your health, and take it seriously. And doctors can be very dismissive, especially the older guard. You want to find like a young doc who's out of school, who's up on the latest stuff, and go in there with some printouts from yourbrainonporn.com and just tell them, hey, I'm doing my own personal journey, and I just like some simple blood work done. It's just difficult when you're a young guy. They don't want to test stuff like that. They feel it's a waste of lab resources. But if you can argue your case effectively and you find a cool doctor, you should be able to get it done.
Yeah, and tell them to listen to this podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
So I think we've pretty much covered everything here. Is there any specific to boost testosterone, any specific exercises, diets you might do to have bigger loads for the ladies?
Sure. Well, testosterone, doing like squats, deadlifts, what do you call it, like compound exercises, so clean and press, stuff like that. Those are all good for testosterone. Working your legs, good for testosterone. You could try maca root. I'm not sure if that works on testosterone. It does supposedly increase your sex drive.
Right,
That's one of the safer ones. There's ones like Tribulus that apparently do have an effect on testosterone, but I wouldn't recommend those because I would. If it's dangerous enough that they say you need to cycle it, which is kind of what I've read online, anything that's kind of similar to a steroid in that sense, like well, if you don't cycle it, you might throw your hormones out of whack. Well, you want to stay away from that stuff, right?
Keep it natural.
So I'd cautiously recommend maca. Do your own research. I'm not even sure if that's for testosterone, but sex drive in general. Loads, well, zinc. I take a little bit of supplement, calcium, magnesium with zinc in it, and it's fairly low. I think it's 15 milligrams. You don't want to go too high, as somebody in the group was posting. It can give you a copper deficiency.
Right. If
you have too much zinc, it depletes your copper. So make sure you're balancing it out. Eat oysters.
That's about it. And flax seeds,
you want huge loads, seeds. Just don't jerk off.
That's number one.
Flax seeds, sesame seeds, there you
go.
Put them in your smoothie.
Yeah, so exactly. So quick summary, if porn is something that you've been struggling with and you feel like, you want to grow and maybe you've been stuck like I was for a certain while, then this is the number one thing, especially when it comes to women. If that's an area in your life that you want to tackle, and you want to get good at, stop fapping, especially to porn. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. There's lots of stuff in here. The pros are you have more energy, more motivation, your momentum, it goes way high. You start being more focused. There's no more brain fog, no erectile dysfunction, bigger loads. All of these things.
Deeper voice.
Which is always a good thing. So all of these things, and the negatives are you start being lethargic, depressed, sad, can't get it up.
And you will have the best sex of your life.
Yeah.
Like the best. It just gets better. I'm just amazed at how good it can be. Since sex during my fapping days and sex now is just night and day, man.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, you should see Matt's eyes. They're just glowing right now.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
If you're interested in joining the NoFap WhatsApp group, you can send me an email at mattdaddy@hotmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's MATTDADDY at hotmail.com.
Yeah, you can send an email or comment below. Either way, we're going to make sure you get on that group and start holding each other accountable. Cool, we're pretty much ready to sign off. Any final words? Is there any place people can find you other than your email? Or
for now, it's just the email. I may be working on a site for my pickup coaching. You can also email me if you'd like more info about that, but that's not what the podcast is about. So you'll have to send me that email if you're interested in a free consultation for pickup coaching.
Yeah, there you go. Matt Daddy here and Sam here. And thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe for more awesome podcasts. There will be more. And hopefully you gain a little bit more clarity with every podcast. Okay, guys, thanks for listening. Ciao.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you.